In the vast tapestry of Tolkien's legendarium, dragons are some of the most formidable and fearsome creatures to walk Middle-earth. Created by Morgoth, these beasts played pivotal roles in the wars of the First Age. Among them, Glaurung and Ancalagon, the Black, stand out as two of the most terrifying and impactful dragons in the tales of the Silmarillion. Today, we'll delve into these legendary creatures' origins, deeds, and ultimate fates. Dragons were Morgoth's response to the powerful resistance of the Noldor and their allies. During the 400-year siege of Angband, Morgoth sought to create a force that could break the stalemate. Thus, dragons were born, terrifying, intelligent, and nearly indestructible creatures of fire and destruction. Morgoth, the first Dark Lord, combined dark sorcery with his knowledge of the elemental powers to create these monstrous beings. Infused with the essence of fire, dragons could unleash devastating streams of flame, reducing armies and fortresses to ashes. Their scales were nearly impervious to weapons, making them formidable foes in battle. The first of these dragons was Glaurung, known as the Father of Dragons. He appeared initially in the First Age, causing widespread devastation and fear. Tolkien writes in the Silmarillion. Then, suddenly, Morgoth sent forth great rivers of flame that ran down swifter than balrogs from Thangorodrim, and poured over all the plain, and the mountains of iron belched forth fires of many poisonous hues, and the fume of them stank upon the air, and was deadly. Glaurung's arrival marked a turning point in Morgoth's war against the Noldor, showcasing the terrifying potential of dragons as engines of destruction and terror. Glaurung, the Father of Dragons, was the first of his kind. Land-bound and wingless, he was nonetheless a force to be reckoned with. His first appearance in 260 First Age was premature, and though he caused the Noldor to retreat, he was eventually driven back to Angband by Fingon and his mounted archers. Morgoth kept Glaurung confined for nearly 200 years to allow him to grow to his full power. When Glaurung emerged again in 455 FA, he had reached his full strength and terrorized the lands of Beleriand. J.R.R. Tolkien describes his devastating power in the Silmarillion. Glaurung came forth in his full might, and in his train were balrogs and armies of orcs, and he was become now indeed the Father of Dragons, and his might and his malice grew together till none could withstand him. In the Dagor Bragulik, the Battle of Sudden Flame, Glaurung led Morgoth's forces, bringing fire and destruction across the lands, turning Ardgarlan into the burnt desert of Anfauglith. His presence marked a turning point in the war, as the elves and men struggled to contend with the might of the first dragon. In 455 FA, Glaurung led Morgoth's forces in a devastating assault known as the Dagor Bragolak, or the Battle of Sudden Flame. The once green plains of Ardgarlan were scorched and transformed into the desolate Anfauglith. As Tolkien writes, in the front of that fire came Glaurung the Golden, Father of Dragons, in his full might, and in his train were balrogs, and behind them came the black armies of the orcs in multitudes, such as the Noldor had never before seen or imagined. The attack was overwhelming, breaking the siege of Angband and marking a turning point in the war. Glaurung's fire and fury devastated the lands of Beleriand, and many heroes of the Eldar fell during this assault. The power and terror of Glaurung were unmatched, and his presence on the battlefield shattered the morale of even the bravest warriors. 17 years later, Glaurung faced the Union of Maedhros, an alliance of elves and men aiming to overthrow Morgoth. The battle was fierce, with Glaurung causing significant damage. However, the dwarves of Belegost, led by Azaghal, managed to wound Glaurung, forcing him to retreat. Tolkien recounts this crucial moment, but even as the forces of the Union were giving way and despairing, Azaghal came up from the south with his dwarves of Belegost, and the great battle of Tears was joined. There the might of the dwarves was shown, for they bore great masks in battle, and withstood fire more hardily than any other of the peoples of Middle-earth. Azaghal wounded Glaurung with his knife, and then he perished. By 495 FA, Glaurung turned his attention to Nargothrond. Leading an army of orcs, he laid siege to the elven city, ultimately bringing it to ruin. The city's defeat was swift and brutal, showcasing Glaurung's unmatched power and strategic prowess. Glaurung's encounter with Turin Trumbar was particularly notable. Using his hypnotic gaze, Glaurung deceived Turin, leading him to abandon the elf princess Finduilas. This act of manipulation set off a tragic chain of events for Turin and his family. Glaurung's cunning and malice were evident as he ensnared Turin in his web of deceit. As Glaurung mocked Turin, he chillingly declared, "Hail, son of Húrin! Well met," he said. "I give thee joy that thou hast found thy sister at last, and now thou shalt know her, for she is Niniel, whom thou hast loved." These words revealed the full extent of Glaurung's cruelty, as he forced Turin to confront the horrifying truth about his sister, Nienor, whom he had unknowingly married. The dragon's manipulation and lies led to immense suffering and tragedy for Turin, illustrating the depth of Glaurung's malevolence and the devastating impact he had on the lives of those he ensnared. Turin's path of vengeance culminated in a dramatic confrontation with Glaurung in 498 FA. Determined to end the dragon's reign of terror, Turin tracked Glaurung to the ravines of Kabed and Aras. Despite being mesmerized and nearly paralyzed by the dragon's gaze, Turin's indomitable will allowed him to strike a fatal blow with his black sword, Gurthang. As Glaurung lay dying, his malevolent nature did not wane. In his final moments, he revealed the devastating truth about Turin's relationship with his sister, Nienor, whom Turin had unknowingly married. This revelation unleashed a tragic series of events that would culminate in both of their deaths. Glaurung's last words to Turin were filled with malice and cruelty. "Die now in the despair that you have deserved." These words plunged Turin into a final tragic realization of the horrors he had been ensnared in. Glaurung's death marked the end of a terrible chapter in the history of Middle-earth, but it also underscored the profound and lasting impact of the dragon's evil on the lives of those he had tormented. While Glaurung was the first and most cunning, Ancalagon the Black was the largest and most formidable of all dragons. Created by Morgoth as a last-ditch effort during the War of Wrath, Ancalagon was a winged dragon of immense size and power. His appearance marked a terrifying escalation in the conflict, showcasing Morgoth's desperation to maintain his grip over Middle-earth. Ancalagon led a host of winged dragons from Angband, creating havoc among the forces of the Valar and their allies. The devastation wrought by these creatures was unparalleled, darkening the skies with their vast wings and unleashing torrents of flame upon their enemies. However, it was Ancalagon himself who was the greatest threat, a living engine of destruction. Tolkien describes the scene vividly, but Erendil came, shining with white flame, and about Vingilot were gathered all the great birds of heaven, and Thorondor was their captain. And there was battle in the air all the day, and through a dark night of doubt. Before the rising of the sun, Erendil slew Ancalagon the Black and cast him from the sky, and he fell upon the towers of Thangorodrim, and they were broken in his ruin. The War of Wrath marked the end of the First Age, with the host of Valinor clashing against Morgoth's forces. In a desperate bid to stave off defeat, Morgoth unleashed Ancalagon the Black and his brood of winged dragons. The skies darkened as Ancalagon led a devastating assault, causing unprecedented destruction and chaos among the ranks of the Vala's army. Tolkien describes the scene. Then the sun rose, and the hosts of the Vala prevailed, and well-nigh all the dragons were destroyed, and all the pits of Angband were broken and unroofed, and the towers of Thangorodrim were thrown down. However, it was the intervention of Eärendil, sailing his ship Vingilot into the heavens, that turned the tide. Accompanied by the great eagles, led by Thorondor, Eärendil engaged in a climactic aerial battle with Ancalagon. The struggle raged throughout the day and into a dark night filled with doubt and fear. As dawn approached, Eärendil finally managed to strike a fatal blow. Before the rising of the sun, Eärendil slew Ancalagon the Black and cast him from the sky, and he fell upon the towers of Thangorodrim, and they were broken in his ruin. The fall of Ancalagon marked the decisive moment of the War of Wrath. His immense body crashed down upon the towers of Thangorodrim, destroying them utterly and signaling the end of Morgoth's dominion. The destruction of Ancalagon and his brood heralded the victory of the Valar and the liberation of Middle-earth from Morgoth's shadow, bringing the First Age to a dramatic and tumultuous close. With the defeat of Ancalagon and the subsequent capture of Morgoth, the dragon's dominion was significantly diminished. However, they were not entirely eradicated. The surviving dragons fled to the northern waste, where they would continue to be a menace in the ages to come, notably during the Third Age with the likes of Smaug. Their continued existence served as a dark reminder of Morgoth's malevolence and the enduring threat of his creations. As Tolkien writes, "Thus Ancalagon the Black perished, and the towers of Thangorodrim were broken and cast down, and with his fall the might of Morgoth was scattered, and he was fled into the deep places of the earth." This marked a pivotal moment in Middle-earth's history, signifying the end of an era of extreme darkness and the beginning of a new age, albeit one still shadowed by the remnants of Morgoth's evil. The dragons that survived retained the cunning and ferocity that Morgoth had instilled in them. They became legendary figures of fear and awe, stories of their terror passed down through generations. Smaug, the most infamous of these later dragons, would eventually arise in the Third Age, bringing destruction and sorrow to the peoples of Middle-earth once more. The legacy of the dragons, therefore, continued to cast a long shadow, ensuring that the tale of their dread would not be forgotten. The dragons of Morgoth, particularly Glaurung and Ancalagon, were pivotal in the epic struggles of the First Age. Their creation, rampages, and ultimate downfalls underscore the themes of power, corruption, and redemption that permeate Tolkien's works. Despite their defeat, the legacy of these mighty beasts continued to shape the histories and legends of Middle-earth. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more Tolkien Explained. We'll see you next time.